Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Change the Air Foundation interview. My name is Kendra Seymour, and I'm so excited to be joined by our guest, Sotirios Papathanasiou, and he is an indoor air quality expert with a substantial experience in the field of environmental issues, especially indoor air quality. And you know we love that here at Change the Air Foundation. Now, he's a strong advocate for clean air initiatives, and it has led him to author 4 books on air pollution for adults and kids. And moreover, he has curated a popular web blog on the topic. He is very interested in devices for, personal reasons, low-cost sensors, and he's been researching how startups rise and fall in this sector. And finally, he, gives advice on factors critical to analyzing air pollution data, local insights, and other valuable information informing data interpretation. And I'm going to add this in, he was recently named one of the top 25 air quality influencers. So congratulations on that.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. It's an honor to be able to share a little bit of the knowledge that I have accumulated over time with your audience.
I love that, and you do such a wonderful job. I've read your blogs and listened to your podcasts explaining this in a way that really helps people to start to think about what's in their air a little differently. And so we love that. Well, let's jump right in. So how did you become interested in air quality?
Well, from a young age, I was interested in environmental issues like animal protection, forest protections, etc. And later in life, when I realized that we need some kind of technology in order to be able to understand what's going on with the air that we breathe, I decided to merge those two specialities, technology and environmental, sensing, in order to help, the society see something as unseen as the air quality.
Yeah. Oh, so it's really kind of like a passion and your job and everything all together then.
Yeah, I am the lucky, from the lucky ones which, created their hobby into their job. So basically I enjoy every day of my life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, and we get to benefit from that passion. So let's jump right into like the topic at hand. What is in our indoor air or air in general? And can you explain to us what particulate matter is? Because that's a word I want anyone listening to walk away from today understanding what that is and what that means for them.
Okay, so first of all, indoor air quality is the description of the composition of the air we breathe. In most cases, we know about oxygen, carbon dioxide, and some other trace elements, and nitrogen, which is very common as well, but we don't utilize it. But unfortunately, in indoor spaces, we will find present some air pollutants. And particulate matter, the one you mentioned earlier, is one of the pollutants, and basically are tiny particles, so small that we cannot see with the naked eye. They will become visible if the concentrations are very high, because we can see how they scatter the light. So, I don't know, maybe in some case you will cook something indoors and you will forget to turn on the exhaust fan, right? So the concentration inside the kitchen is going to rise, and maybe you will see some kind of a fog on the spotlights inside your kitchen. And that tells you that you have, tremendous amount of particulate matters at that moment in your house.
Now, is that the same thing, like sometimes on a sunny day and the sunlight comes through the window, and if you hit it just right, you can see little particles? Well, hopefully you don't see too many, but you can see that particulate matter?
Yes, those are considered also particulate matter, but those particles are in a bigger size range, where they are visible with our naked eye, because you can distinguish the shape of the particle. And we talk about 50 microns and above in that case. But everything below, you cannot see it with your naked eye. It's even smaller than the width of a hair.
Yeah, because I think it's measured in a unit called microns, typically, right? Particulate matter. And so a human hair, a single strand, I believe, is roughly 70 microns.
Correct.
Right? And the human eye can't really see anything below, you said 50, I've seen 50. 40 to 50 microns.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then some of these particles that we're talking about, I've seen it referred to as particulate matter, like 10 or 2.5. Can you start talking to us about some of those things? Like, what is it exactly?
Right.
that we're breathing in that we can't see?
Yeah, so lately we will see the terms PM2.5 and PM10. So those terms describe the sizes, when you say PM10, the sizes of particulate matter with diameter 10 microns and less, and everything below that. And the same thing applies with PM2.5, 2.5 microns in diameter or less. Those values, the PM values, are measured in micrograms per cubic meter. And unfortunately, when we measure particles of a specific size with mass concentration, we lose information. So for example, if we have particles of size, let's say 0.3 microns, and we try to describe them with mass concentration, even if we have millions of particles, we will see rather a small number in a PM2.5 value. But at the same time, if we try to describe the larger particles, and we have like million particles of 2.5 microns in diameter, we will see a very big number in micrograms per cubic meter in mass. Well, so there is an issue there how we describe the smaller particles, and we are trying to implement new ways into describing that particular size of particles, which are called submicron particles. Or in some case, you will hear the term ultrafine particles, or in some case, you will hear the term superfine particles. There are many terms, which again, they describe the same thing. Particles so small that we are unable to measure with typical techniques that we have used in the past, and we are unable to describe them with the same way we used to describe bigger particles.
Yeah, well,
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
I try to be as less technical as possible.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think as the scientific understanding and technology gets better, we're able to classify these things even further and kind of understand them more. So we have, for people listening who've been following Change the Air Foundation, they might have a little background on something like the typical mold spore, which does range in size, is about 3 microns. It can go to 10. It can actually be larger, it can be smaller. And we sometimes talk about mold fragments, which, break apart from a mold colony, and those start getting down into that, fine particulate matter and even smaller. But there are other things, right? Like carbon monoxide and dioxide and dust mites and things like that. Is there anything else that the listener might be familiar with that it falls in this, PM10 or smaller that they maybe aren't thinking about?
From classification, you mean the type of particles? Not actually, no. Yeah, we tend to measure mold as well in the same range as particulate matters, because basically we talk about particles, just the origin is different. We talk about an organic matter rather than an inorganic matter that comes from, let's say, an exhaust pipe, or maybe because you have burned food inside your house.
Yeah.
So yes.
So then we can't see these particles. In many cases, we probably can't even smell them unless it's, characteristic of that particle and the concentration's high enough. How do they impact our health? Do they impact our health? Why should we even be concerned?
Yes. So when we talk now about particles, you have to understand that the variety is huge because it depends on the chemistry of the particle. Not all particles are the same. For example, if I rubber right now my shirt, I will release some particles, but those particles are made of cotton, right? So I will breathe them, but I'm not going to have an impact on my health because they are, I don't know, they don't have a big impact on our health. They are basically organic particles that they have no interaction with the rest of our cells. But when we talk about mold, or even particles that are coming from exhaust pipes, like carbon particles, once they are deposited inside our body, they're going to create a chain of reaction with our cells. And in most cases, they are going to kill the cells because they are going to steal some electrons and the cells die. We call them oxidants, right? And in case of a mold, this is a living organism, is going to affect our body in a different way. Now it depends the mold and where it's going to get deposited inside our body. The first thing that it's going to get affected is our respiratory tract. Eventually, it's going to reach our lungs. And now, depending the size of the particles, they may also get distributed around our bodies and reach even our brain or our heart and create issues there.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, you have a fantastic graphic on your blog post, and you actually gave us permission to share in our testing guide that went out. Is it okay if I pull it up? Because I think the visual is really helpful for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, give me 1 second here, and I'm going to pull it up because I really want, when I saw this, it really kind of showed things in a different light for me. Can you see it on the screen, the human body image from your website?
It's loading now. Yeah.
Okay.
It's there.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So can you tell people, explain this to us, what we're looking at?
Well, you can see different illustrations of a human body. It doesn't matter if, the ethnicity or the gender, we are all the same inside, and most of our organs, but it's going to affect us the same way. So the bigger particles, like particles of a size of 10 microns in diameter, they are going to only reach the upper respiratory tract, until our neck. And later, the smaller we go, the deeper they can go inside our body. And we talk about the particles in 2.5 or 1 micron diameter, which they are going to get deposited inside our lungs. And eventually, smaller particles than that, in the range of ultrafines, they are going to get distributed around our body. And as I mentioned earlier, they can reach our brain, heart, or every other human organ.
See, I absolutely love this, because when you start thinking about, you said this, the smaller the particle, the deeper it can go into your body. We think, oh, a little, I sneeze or something or whatever, but it can cross into your bloodstream and even into the blood-brain barrier, and the extent of these particles is quite problematic, because I don't think people realize this. And tell me what you think about this. Does air pollution kill?
In a long term, yes, unfortunately. And depending also the pollutant, right? If we talk about carbon monoxide, it's going to kill you instantly and without you realizing. So yeah, particulate matter, it's going to eventually kill you in a long term, slowly. And, for me, it's not the fact that a pollutant is going to kill you, but rather than the quality of life that you are going to get later on in your life. So I try to be proactive and stay healthy by various ways, like exercising, eat healthy, but also breathing clean air, right? And I think this is very important for people to realize, because the effects of some of the pollutants is not immediate. You may sneeze, like you mentioned, but the way they are going to interact with your body, it's, in a long-term relationship rather than something immediate.
And it can, depending on the pollutant or the part, it can cause a wide range of health effects that just, you're right, really diminish the overall quality of your life. Now, I mean, we're talking a lot of different things here. We talk a lot about zeroing in on mold and what that can do, but there are other things. So let's kind of shift the conversation. So we have these small, particles that we can't see, we can't smell. So how do we reduce them in our environment? How do we improve our indoor air quality? What are some steps people can take?
So the first thing that you have to think is, what are the sources of PM indoors? And in some case, indoors, the sources of PM is the outdoor environment. Like if we think about wildfires or vehicle traffic, busy streets, etc. If we don't have any kind of filtration between, the ventilation that we introduce from the outdoor environment to the indoor, we are going to bring all this pollution inside as well. So we have to introduce some kind of HEPA filters or any other means that they may stop, particles from coming indoors. And then indoors, as I mentioned earlier, We have wood stoves that they can create indoor air pollution, gas stoves as well. The process of cooking as well, especially if you fry food, that's the reason I always recommend using a lid when you cook and at the extractor as well. And, you know, daily activities which are not of a big importance, like, you know, the friction of the clothes, of the bed sheets or whatever we have, they are going to generate some particles as well. Our pets as well, they introduce particles in the environment. So, you know, people with allergies, they need to, of course, take care of the particles that are released from pets or even the skin that we humans expel over time. What other sources of PM? Candles. We shouldn't use any kind of candles indoors. Zero. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the truth. Perfumes as well, especially those that they release some kind of they have some kind of nasal and they release, you know, aerosols into the environment. Aerosols is another term to describe particles. It's the same thing eventually. And what else?
What about cleaning products? Is that a source?
Yeah, they can create secondary organic particles. Later on, they are chemicals, which later on they form particles once they released in the indoor environment. And if they are exposed to sunlight or other parameters, they may form some particles made from, you know, the composition of the chemicals we talk about. Very complicated. I don't want to dive there.
No, that's okay.
But yes, yeah, you know, those are the main sources. And something else I forgot are humidifiers, especially when we use tap water to refill them and, you know, introduce more humidity indoors. Because there are different types of humidifiers. Some of them, they rely on evaporation. Some of them, they rely on ultrasonic vibrations, etc. But in most cases, they are going to, you know, tap water has lots of minerals inside, or even the mineral water we buy from the store. And those minerals, they are going to release into the environment in a form of particles of PM again. And they are not meant to get breathed. They are meant to get digest, but not to get breathed and deposit in our lungs. Our lungs cannot process them, right?
Yeah.
So they stay there and create issues. So we should be careful as well with humidifiers.
I had never thought about that. Is that why? So if you have to use a humidifier, always side note, make sure it's clean and you're following manufacturer's instructions so it's not getting moldy. But should you use like a distilled water then to remove so that it has minerals removed?
But you know, you have to be very careful with the humidifiers because they introduce lots of humidity and they may help mold growth.
Yeah.
If your house is susceptible to this kind of you know, pathogen. So yeah.
Yeah. And we tend to recommend, I understand, I have 2 children and sometimes when they get sick, they'd recommend a humidifier, but the whole house ones, I don't know if that's popular where you're at. People will sometimes put a whole house humidifier and I'm always like, maybe think about that. You don't have a lot of control sometimes and you're introducing moisture, you know, through your ventilation system. And so be very smart about using, you know, maybe those standalone humidifiers, you know, and the water.
Yes. Always measure your humidity indoors and try to be between 40 and 60%. And do not go too low, do not go too high, because both ranges, low and high, can create problems.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder. And, you know, most people, if you're listening, you can get it for probably 10 or 11 bucks, the hygrometer online, you know, through most Amazon and you know, other retailers. And they measure the humidity. They're fairly accurate. But it's a good idea to have those. I know I have multiple in my home on different levels so that I you know, humidity is not consistent throughout a home. It can vary in classes.
Yeah, in the bathroom it's higher because you have water there.
Yeah. So I've actually given those out as like Christmas presents. I'm super fun.
Okay. That's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's not something you buy for yourself necessarily. So it sounds like some of the prevention things, and this is a message, you know, we're giving. It's obviously about like source control. So the candles and the things that you're adding to your environment. It's about ventilation. So when you're cooking using your ventilation hood the whole time, and then
But
even for a little bit after.
I want to raise there a bit of concern about the type of ventilations we have, unfortunately,
Sure.
in the US. Because in most cases we use microwave range
Yes.
hooders, if I remember well the name,
Yeah.
how you call it. In
Yeah.
Europe, we have a different name.
When you have the
So
microwave above the stove,
yes,
and
yes,
so you turn on this thing on the microwave and it has like this little thing under and it blows it back out. Yeah, talk to us about that. I'm glad you brought that
yeah. So this is the most ridiculous product I have ever seen in my life. Because it doesn't do anything, it just spends electricity and it recirculates the same air behind the wall, but inside the house, not outside the house. It doesn't take the pollution outside of your house. And in most cases, they have a mesh, a metallic mesh made from aluminum, which you can see the holes, they are that big.
Yes, they're big.
So, and they call that filtration. And it's there only just to capture some of the humidity that is released during the cooking, but it's not effective for the particles that we have already mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So basically, you introduce, all of the particles that you have produced during the cooking process into your indoor environment. You falsely believe that you have done something, but you haven't.
Yeah. Yes, that is important. It's like a placebo effect, right? I'm going to
Yeah,
turn it on, and again, it's those ones where it's like the microwave over and the ventilation. In my kitchen, we have it. We moved several years ago, and I was pretty picky about it to make sure that, it's actually vents to the outside of your house. And
exactly.
then you have intake air and all of that set up properly. And the same with your bathroom fans. A little different, but people will vent their bathroom fans like into their attic, and you want to be removing this to the outside, out of your home,
Exactly.
and being smart. But that is super interesting. I'd never thought to raise that point about that style of kitchen hood, the ones with the microwave.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're blowing it right back in your face too, like if you've ever
Yeah,
cooked it
and you
one of
spend electricity for nothing. I don't get it.
yeah. Yeah. No, don't. So that's something, if you have one of those, make a plan to maybe switch that out in time for something that's going to be more efficient. So we have the ventilation, filtration. You mentioned HEPA filters. So we can have those, on your HVAC units. If you're in a climate that has HVAC units, they're standalone units. You mentioned cleaning, about removing does that particulate matter settle eventually down, and can that be removed with vacuuming and dusting, or does some of that just continuously stay suspended because of its small size?
Exactly. So depending the size, it may stay forever, into the breathable air. The bigger the particles, the fastest they drop into the floor or any surfaces. But when we talk about submicron particles, they stay for a long time there. And eventually they will never settle because we move and we create, airflow, and they never have the chance to, have the gravity pull them down.
Yeah. And then the bigger ones that do, you sit on your couch, or your kids roll around on the floor, or the dog jumps on the bed or something, and that air has this particulate matter and it just resuspends it. So lots of cleaning, filtration, ventilation. What are your thoughts on people opening windows?
Yeah,
Is that
so
a good tip
in
or no?
Europe, where I come from, especially in the South Europe, we don't rely on HVAC systems. Everyone relies on natural ventilation by opening a window. So you have to be very careful. In my case, for example, I have to monitor the air quality indoors and outdoors. And depending the conditions outdoor, I may decide to open the window or not. So if the pollution is high outside, I won't open it because I'm going to introduce all this pollution indoors. So I will wait if I want to reduce the carbon dioxide levels indoors to a specific moment of day where I know that, everyone is at their home, no one is transporting back and forward, so the streets are empty, and I can open the window and ventilate, with a peace of mind there. Yeah. But I live in a city. Now, in the US, it's a bit different because people live in houses with big distances between one and the other. But again, I think you have to monitor what's going on outside and indoors in order to take the decision there.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
having the automatic system, the building automated system, manage something like that for you without you worrying when you have to open the window or close it back.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like if you're, I think that's smart. I always pay attention to what's the humidity right now, but even 10 minutes a day, making sure that the garbage trucks aren't coming by or, traffic isn't high, and I'll open my windows to cross ventilate. Now, is there something, we talked about a hygrometer and that measures the moisture in the air, but is there something the average person could buy that's affordable that would help them understand maybe what's in the air, if this particulate matter is a particular problem? Like, is there
Yeah, there are many air quality monitors, they are called, for indoor spaces, which they are meant to help, occupants of buildings understand the air quality and take decisions upon the readings that the instruments are taking over time. And I'm a big fan of continuous monitoring of the air quality, for example. In some cases, you will see that some expert may come to your house and monitor in a specific moment of the day your house and tells you you have an issue or you don't have an issue. However, air quality is something that is changed dynamically over the day, depending the amount of people you have inside your house, the activities you do. So I'm a big fan of continuous monitoring and real-time data.
Yeah, well, and what I love here too is you don't even need a device necessarily. The average person, you really don't. You can start being smart about what you're introducing into your environment and start thinking about filtration and opening windows or bringing in fresh air. So there's a lot you can do that will just improve your indoor air quality in general.
There are a lot of things that you can do, but you always have to have like a benchmark, right? So you have to know what happened before in order to make the changes and see if the changes that you have made had an impact or not in your indoor environment. Because if not, you will always wonder, why did I do that? Do I notice any difference? Am I healthy now? Or why am I still sneezing, for example? Did I fix the particles? Or why am I have a headache? Did I remove the carbon dioxide from indoor space? So you have to have some kind of tool in order to understand your indoor environment. Because as we said at the beginning, we talk about something that we cannot perceive with our senses in most cases, and we rely on technology for that.
Yeah. I think too, it's going to become it's important now, and I think it'll become increasingly more important as we build our buildings tighter, right? And we're focusing on energy efficiency, which is great. What there's trade-offs there, right? We're not
Always,
getting
yes.
those air exchanges, and even something you mentioned it. So let's talk carbon dioxide for just a moment, because you breathe that out and people think, well, what's the big deal? But if you've looked into some of the science behind how carbon dioxide levels rise when there's people in the home over time, and it can cause headaches and fatigue and other issues. Is there anything you can just tell us about carbon dioxide levels and how that impacts our indoor air and what people might need to think about?
Yeah, so carbon dioxide is not going to kill you, at least not here on Earth. It's going to kill astronauts because it doesn't move inside the space stations where they are, because there is the absence of the gravity makes it create a bubble around them, and eventually they left without oxygen and they can kill them. But in our case, we have gravity and it helps us circulate the air indoors. And although it's not going to kill us, it's going to create a fatigue to us. It's going to make us a bit more stupid, if I can say that expression, or it's going to fog our brain in most cases. Various scientific studies, they have found that over a specific amount of concentrations, it's going to impact our decision-making, cognitive abilities, and strategic also decisions. And even during night, when we close everything and we go to bed, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you wonder why I feel like I'm tired, and even though I slept like for 8 hours, I don't feel like rested. And it's because CO2 may have risen during the night, and you don't allow your body to oxygenate properly. right? In order to recover and be fresh in the morning. So we have to be very careful in that situations. And something very common that I have seen, I have experienced the same thing when I was a teenager. Teenagers tend to stand inside the room for a long time, close everything, listen to the music, study or whatever. And eventually a parent opens the door to say, hey, do you want a glass of water or whatever? And you experience a smell, a very pungent smell, right?
Oh, yeah.
From your kids. And this is a combination of carbon dioxide and also VOCs that they have accumulated inside the room. And this is not helpful for the kids, especially if they study and they want to be competitive.
Well, it's funny. I've actually seen studies where they've monitored like the levels of CO2 in a room, and they're giving a test to people, and then they give, a comparable test, but they bring in a lot of fresh air and ventilation, and it does impact performance. And Dr. Joseph Allen has a great book called Healthy Buildings, and he talks about this and how our indoor air impacts, our productivity, our cognitive abilities, obviously our health and sick days and things like that. So it's really interesting when you start thinking about how something that we just don't even probably think about most of the time, the air that we're breathing, really can impact our health. So I know we're getting low on time here. So what's the biggest message you want people to think about? What's the takeaway you want them to come away with today?
That it's time to consider the air we breathe the same way we consider water and food. I take a holistic approach to a healthy life, and air quality is, I think, one of the most fundamental things in order to stay healthy, be healthy, and create a future that I don't want to live forever, right? But I want to live healthy as long as possible. And I think air quality is going to help me achieve that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So last thing, if people wanted to learn more or reach out to you, how could they find you? Because I know you have a lot of resources out there.
Yeah, I'm very active on social media. They can always reach me. Actually, lots of people, text me and they ask me questions, even about products, what's my thoughts on that, standards or whatever. They can always reach me. I have a blog, like you mentioned at the beginning, called seetheair.org, where I write articles about air pollution and air quality for both environments, indoor and outdoor. And yeah, I try to stay relevant by raising questions and helping, the industry as well and the society understand the issues with climate change, air quality, air pollution, etc.
Well, I would say you're definitely doing that. I mean, you've been highlighted like internationally for your work. So thank you for that. And for anyone listening, that handy graphic, you can find it on his blog. You can also, if you head over to changetheairfoundation.org right now and sign up for our newsletter, we're sending out a free testing guide. And there's a section that it talks about particulate matter and Sotirios. Thank you for letting us use your graphic, because it's so helpful, I think, when you can begin to visualize how some of these things that we can't see actually impact our health. Well, thank you again so much for being here. I'm excited to see everything that you're going to be doing in the future. And I hope we can maybe connect again. I'm sure there'll be people with follow-up questions, but have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. It has been a great honor for me to speak with you and share my thoughts.
And for everyone listening, if you found this interview helpful, do me a favor. Head on over to changetheairfoundation.org and sign up for our newsletter, because it really is the best way to get great interviews like this directly to your inbox. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.